Hey everybody, this is GGB and co-host Popper. She's back, everyone. I hope you missed her, because she is back from her vacation and she's ready, more ready than ever. Look at that face. It's a face of readiness. But we had 5 different conferences play yesterday with different things happen in each of them. Let's go over what happened real quick. Now, in SEC basketball, we had Tennessee face off against Georgia, and we had Ole Miss take on Missouri. Now, Missouri was in second place today, but unfortunately for Missouri, it fell from second place all the way to 5th, thanks to LSU also picking up a win against Mississippi State today to pass them. Tennessee also picked up a win and put itself in second place in the conference. Now, on one hand, Missouri was the one upset of the day. Ole Miss was able to upset Missouri, putting them at a 6-6 record and an 11-8 record. And in my opinion, looks like a contender for the playoffs. More a contender, in my opinion, than a team like LSU. But Georgia lost. It was a big loss, too. And Georgia's not a bad basketball team, so it was definitely interesting. Good win by Tennessee. That's really all that changed here was the fall by Missouri. And Ole Miss was able to pass Georgia. Now, going to the Big East, nothing huge happened. Marquette was unable to beat Villanova, which means Butler had to move down 1 spot instead of 2, which is good for Butler. Providence was able to eke it out against St. John's. Actually, against UConn. Actually, not eke it out. They pretty much dominated this game. It definitely looked like Providence was the better basketball team. And I'm starting to really doubt UConn's abilities. I don't know if they're that great of a basketball team right now. I'm not really sold on them. I mean, right now, I would take a lot of Big East teams, a lot of other teams before I'd take UConn. They're going to have to prove to me something before the tournament starts. They're on a 2-game losing streak, lost to Seton Hall, and then Providence. They have a chance to pick up some quality wins down the stretch when they play Xavier and Villanova. They have a chance to redeem that loss against Providence on next Tuesday. But the rest of the way after that, you have Seton Hall. That might be a decent win if you could pick that up. But Georgetown, Marquette, and Georgetown. You play Georgetown twice. You have Providence, Marquette down the stretch. So they have some chance to pick up some quality wins, but they really have to pick them up if they really want me to start respecting them come tournament time. ACC basketball now. Unfortunately for all really Hokie fans out there, Georgia Tech was unable to pull off the upset against Virginia, which means they fell 2 spots past Syracuse and Pitt, which was very helpful for Syracuse and Pitt fans. Not so helpful for those Hokie and Seminoles fans. So we'll see what happens. Virginia plays again, and I think Virginia Tech plays Louisville on Saturday, so we'll have a chance to see if Louisville will pass Virginia Tech. Now, in the American, nothing much changed other than Tulsa was able to pass USF because Houston just absolutely dominated. After normally they lose in a stumbler in an American opponent, they normally dominate the next team. They only have 2 American losses, and that's to East Carolina and Tulsa. Now, those are weird losses because really the best team is Tulsa, and they're sitting at 500. So, I mean, not exactly great losses there, but... and East Carolina is also at 500. So, I mean, it's not horrible, but they're also not, like, they've dominated against teams like Memphis and SMU. But they couldn't get it done against teams like Tulsa and East Carolina. But it's definitely interesting. I think the Houston's going to be an interesting case to look at coming in the future. Now, Wisconsin was able to beat Nebraska, although it definitely looked closer than it should have been at halftime. That moves them to 9-5 in conference, keeps them in 4th place. Now, Iowa, on the other hand, was able to beat Rutgers, sending them to a 7-7 record, which, I mean, Indiana, you got to be eating that up if you're Indiana. If you win on Saturday, Rutgers loses, boom, you're ahead of Rutgers, and you're in the top half of the Big Ten. Now, Indiana was able to eke it out last night against Northwestern in double overtime. Iowa pretty much dominated against Rutgers, and that caused a drop for Purdue. Don't worry, you Purdue fans. You'll have a chance to make it up on... Actually, today. You have a chance to pass Iowa today, but we'll go over that later on. So, there's a pretty big question out there, is how many Big Ten teams are going to make it. How many I think is going to make that? I find it likely 10. Because I'm looking at 10 basketball teams. You have obviously the top half of Michigan, Illinois, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue, Rutgers, I think they're all going to be very highly seeded. And that leaves some question marks for the last three. Will Indiana make it? Will Minnesota make it? I feel like the answer to both those questions is yes. Indiana has proven they're a good basketball team, have a season sweep over Iowa. Minnesota has also proven they can beat some high-quality teams, has a win over Michigan and Iowa under their belt. So the big question is Michigan State going to make it? I think Penn State can hit a stretch. Now, the Michigan State loss isn't great, but they can hit a patch where they win a lot of these games. You look at their schedule, aside from the Ohio State, Iowa, Purdue stretch, it's not a horrible stretch for them. It's not like it's really bad. They have a good schedule moving forward, and they have a chance to get a decent record before the March Madness comes around. They have a chance to do some stuff in the Big Ten tournament. And yes, I do think, technically speaking, I think we can get 11 in. I don't think Maryland's going to get in the way they're playing. They haven't been inspiring me. Every Penn State game, I feel like they're in. Except for that one Wisconsin game, they really have been competing in almost every game. Maryland just straight up hasn't. So that's what my take on the Big Ten is. Just leave your comments down below if you have a different opinion as moi. Now, let's go into the college basketball games of the day. Now, we have two ranked teams playing today. So at 4 o'clock, we have number 24, Purdue, traveling to Minnesota. Now, let's go over that real quick. Now, Purdue, with a win, can move to 9-5, 14-7. Overall, they would be able to pass Iowa for 5th place. Now, with a loss, they're not moving thanks to the Rutgers loss against Iowa, right? So, Purdue really can move up one spot with a loss. Now, with a win. Now, with a loss for Minnesota, they're not going anywhere either with the 5-8 record. Michigan State would be right behind them with the 4-8 record. But Penn State can get to 5-8 on Sunday when they play Nebraska. And I find it unlikely, but it could be possible Michigan State beats Iowa on Saturday. So there can be some stuff to watch moving forward. Now, Minnesota would obviously like the cushion, so this is going to be an interesting matchup because Michigan State and Penn State are literally right on Minnesota's heels. Plus, you kind of need some quality wins going into the tournament stretch. Fortunately for Minnesota, they've been notoriously good at home with a 12-1 record at home. Now, the problem with Minnesota has really been going on the road. Haven't really been able to do anything on the road, and actually has the worst away record in the Big Ten with 0-6. They've just not been great going on the road. So that's definitely looks for moving down the stretches. If Minnesota's going on the road, they're likely going to lose. And the fact is they have some tough road games coming up where they have to go on the road against a team like Indiana, have to go on the road against a team like Penn State. So there are some games that are going to be difficult on the road. Now, there are some games I think that aren't going to be that difficult on the road. For instance, Maryland is a good chance to pick up your first away win. Other than that, you only have 3 away games moving forward, but the Indiana and Penn State games are games to look out for. The Illinois traveling to your home stadium is going to be difficult to pull off as well. Rutgers is also a decent basketball team, so you're going to have to watch out for them moving forward. But it's going to be interesting. There's some stuff can move in the Big Ten today. Now, the other game is number 20 USC is traveling to Washington. Now, USC is favored by 11 points at 9 o'clock. But now, if you're a UCLA fan, you're like, oh my God, go Washington. Because with a Washington win and a USC loss, which is what is going to happen with the Washington win, the USC falls to 9-3. What's a better record than 9-3? The 9-2 record of UCLA. So UCLA can move up to first place with a Washington win today over USC. Now, Washington's not moving anywhere with a win or a loss. They're basically where they are for now. Now, if California picks up another win, then we could be talking about it, but they've lost 6 straight, so that seems unlikely. And if you look at Cal's schedule moving forward, it is not favorable. They have to play Colorado and Oregon, but honestly, some of these other games are winnable. They can beat Utah. I don't know if they will beat Utah, but Utah's not that great this year. Washington also has a chance to beat them. Oregon State seems like to be a difficult one with the way Oregon State's been playing, but I don't know. That's going to be very, very, very interesting. At least I find it. Washington has a chance to knock off a top-tier competitor. Now, 3-10 record's not going to be able to pass the 4-8 record of Washington State. But I think you can definitely make the case that with a few more wins, Washington can definitely pass Washington State. I honestly don't think the Pac-12 is that great, but I mean they do have a ranked team, so I don't know. I don't even know what to think of that. So what team does GGB is going to go with the upset? Personally, I think Purdue has the biggest chance of being upset today against Minnesota. Now, Minnesota is a very, very good basketball team. They're playing at a high level. Now, Boilermakers also are playing at a very high level, but if you remember correctly last time, I bet on Purdue to upset Minnesota, and now I'm going to go with Minnesota to upset Purdue because it just seems like Minnesota has not lost at home recently. They just definitely seem to be a good on their own home court. Now, Purdue hasn't been atrocious like Minnesota in away games, but they do have a 3-5 record, not a great away record, so that's what I'm worried about a little bit. If you're a Purdue fan, I'm going to pick Minnesota. I think they have a chance to pick up a huge quality win here. Hey everybody, this is GGV co-host Buffer saying adios amigos and go Golden Gophers.